Welcome into the Orange and Brown Report streaming network live. This is the React. My name is Brad Ward. The man next to me is the always fantastic, the one and only Pete Smith. What is going on, Pete? How are you?
I'm good. We have real football. We
We have real
saw
football.
real
We had a football
preseason
game.
game. We're getting more joint practices, more preseason action, so we're in it.
We are. We're in the thick of it. Where we want to be. What's up, Brandon? What's up, everybody in the chat? Glad to see you filing in. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on your way in or out. We have passed 10,000 subscribers. Thank you all for being a part of that. It's a big deal here. So we appreciate you for that. What's up, MC? Big week this week, Pete. Obviously, we'll do some talking about what happened, obviously, on Friday night. But a big week in front of them as they will have two joint practices with the defending world champion Philadelphia Eagles, and then a game on Saturday. Quite a test here for the Browns, right? This in these joint practices, this should be a good litmus test for them.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they did as well as they did against the Panthers, that's good. Now you get to see, I think, the best measuring stick before they face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, next week they face off, they play the Rams. I don't believe there's joint practices for that at all. Just the game, and even then, it's still a preseason game. Joint practices, 2 days against a very good team, defending Super Bowl champs. This is the one where I think, whether they want to admit it or not, the Browns are going to get sort of the best picture of who they are. Are they going to come out of this week feeling like, oh, maybe we're going to be better than people think we are, that we're on the right track in the things we're trying to accomplish? Or are they going to come out of this and go, man, a lot of questions that we still haven't answered, and we're just not there yet?
Yeah, the physicality and the physical nature and kind of their approach to this training camp will really be put to test. We kind of like marked a check by, they did pretty well against the Panthers, at least in the game from what we saw, physically. Now, does that carry over to a team like the Eagles who, is really going to put your offensive line to the test, right?
Yeah, it's one of the huge questions, obviously, is can they run the ball?
Yeah.
Can your starters move the Eagles' defensive front? They've lost a couple guys, but they've reloaded well. They've got a ton of talented players up front. Are the Browns going to be able to move the ball when they need to on the ground, set themselves up for success on that side? And then hopefully the thing that, I think stood out to me with the first game is they put guys on the ground. They tackled well. Is that going to carry over? Because that was a huge problem last year. That has been a bugaboo for them in terms of, they've got a number of issues in getting off the field on third down, but one of them is they have not tackled well. I thought they tackled well against the Panthers in that first preseason game. That needs to carry over. And those are elements that if the Browns are going to be successful, they have to be good at. They do not have the room for error right now. With the quarterback situation and their offense in general, they need to do those things at a high level if they're going to, stay in these games and compete.
Yeah, Amber asking in the chat, are they even playing their starters? Probably not many of them, I would doubt, on Saturday, because they will have 2 hard days of work in joint practices. Isn't that what we're kind of assuming?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Stefanski's already sort of hinted at the idea that they aren't going to put a ton of starters out there. We'll see. We'll see if there are guys that didn't get a ton of work that may need to be out there. I'll use an example. Greg Newsome has sort of been in and out of the lineup with a shoulder.
Yeah.
Let's say he's unable to do, the group and team periods in the joint practices, but for whatever reason, his shoulder is ready to go on Saturday. You could make an argument that they would want him to be in the preseason game to get some work there. But the majority of those guys, it's Wednesday and Thursday. The goal from my mind is get your work there so you don't have to, so you can use Friday as a mental and recovery day. You can use Saturday largely as a recovery day and go from there.
Connie saying she's got $25 on Carson Swessinger for Defensive Player of the Year. Trying to think of when the last time, when was the last time a linebacker won Defensive Player of the Year? Has it been recently? I'm trying to think of who has even won Defensive Player
No.
or Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, pardon me.
Yeah, I mean, defensive rookie of the year, there's a shot. But defensive player, it has not happened. I mean, there's been arguments where like Fred Warner had a great case a couple different years, and they just it's really hard. The last one might be Luke Kuechly that got defensive player of the year.
Yep.
But beyond that, if you're just talking rookie, there's a case to be made. He's going to make a ton of tackles, but is he going to make the highlight plays that get you those awards? Is he going to force and recover fumbles? Is he going to intercept passes that score touchdowns? That's typically where those awards go to. Is and so many of these awards are becoming like this. It's like the Heisman, where it's about highlights as opposed to just
splash
being a great football player.
Yeah, you gotta have the resume and then splash plays on top of it to kind of push you over the top. But not a bad pick, Connie, for Rookie of the Year. I mean, certainly could be there if he makes a couple interceptions. He certainly has shown that he can cover well, or has the athletic ability to do so. All right, so the other news that's out there right now, and we'll just kind of hit on this for a moment, is Myles Garrett speeding 100 miles per hour in a 60, 40 over. This is after multiple citations over the years, including a car accident that he's very lucky to walk away from. Was that last year, 2 years ago?
2021.
2021. So what thoughts on the speeding ticket and anything? I mean, people are asking, like, should the Browns punish him? No, I don't. I think that's crazy. But I would like to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not that he was speeding home because he wanted to see the latest from the OBR in terms of insider content that we posted.
He was.
With a lot of good nuggets. Look, I mean, it's dumb. I mean, the best thing I can hope for is the amount of speeding he's done. He's gotten better at it in terms of being a driver at those speeds. I mean, if he wants to solve the problem, he can do it real easily. Get a driver. He can afford it. Hell, the team might give him one. Do it that way. But other than that, what are you going to do? Fire him for speeding or fining him or suspending him was one particularly stupid idea I heard. Yeah, you're going to sit him out against the Bengals because he speeds. No, it's dumb. Like I said, it's dumb. It's unsafe. He could get himself killed or kill somebody else as a result. And obviously, he has the situation where he basically hydroplaned off of a road that led to a serious, significant shoulder injury that hindered him for half a season. But other than that, he's gonna. There's only so much you can do as long as he pays the thing and doesn't. Maybe he'll accumulate enough points that they take his license away, and then he can get a driver. But beyond that, they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Jack saying, I've seen various videos on YouTube claiming there was some kind of an incident with Gabriel after the Panthers. I believe it's a joke. I think what you're talking about, if it's the one I saw, it's a joke of they're like, oh, Gabriel was arrested after the game or something, and they show like a really short guy in handcuffs or something like that. So I think you probably just got mixed in with some nonsense there. Yeah, I mean, apparently Garrett likes to drive fast. This is something that he likes to do, obviously. So, because, I mean, he's had quite a few opportunities to change his ways and has not. So, I don't know if we'll see that driver or whatever. I know it would be easy to fix. I just don't see that happening. This just may be something that comes with him. I don't know.
A lot of guys speed, unfortunately. We've seen it become a problem with certain guys, Rashee Rice, notably Sheldon Richardson. got in a real bad situation going like 140 with a child in the car. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. You're not going to sit him down. So unless he's willing to get a driver or something else, it is what it is.
Yeah. Traffic citations will not result in penalty, I don't believe, ever really on the field. So those suggestions, I think, are going to fall on deaf ears. All right. Let's proceed. You're watching the React. Go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe. Thanks for being here to watch the show. This is Andrew Siciliano on the Rich Eisen show, talking about the Browns quarterback situation. What else would anybody be talking about in this country but the Browns quarterback situation? The hot topic everywhere you go.
Number 12.
Yeah, he's good.
Shadur Sanders.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully that wipes out Josh Gordon, anyone else who's wearing 12, at least for
wow.
the moment.
Colt
Are we
McCoy,
already to
you want
that
to go down
point?
to
Colt
12?
McCoy, that's a good one.
Yeah, he was all right.
You saw it live. You called it, and you've been around that team throughout training camp here. Shadur Sanders' opportunity comes in very unusual fashion. It's literally because everyone else is hurt,
Out of
except Joe
necessity.
Flacco, who
Correct.
is 40 and might get hurt at any second. So let's roll Shadur out there. It looked good to the eye test. I'm not an expert. We had Chase Daniel on yesterday breaking down the X's and O's. He went here to here in this read. I just know watching it, the stuff you heard, the good stuff about Shadur Sanders in college, which is he is going to be poised in the pocket. He is going to be very accurate with the football. He's going to be tough when he needs to take a hit. That stuff showed up.
Yeah.
And it didn't look too big for him.
He looked the part, and you're right. I mean, that's a great way to say it. It didn't look too big for him. It looked like the guy we saw at Colorado, which was amazing accuracy, pretty good pocket presence. We saw the good and the bad. Like, we saw the very subtle movement on that second touchdown to Caden Davis, where let's give credit to an undrafted rookie running back in Amani Marshall from App State, who, crossed the face of the quarterback, got the blitzer, but Shadur didn't. That's Chase Daniel.
Amani Marshall in your sleep tonight. But
Amani Marshall, 39. But he didn't flee the pocket. He just had the subtle movement, reset the pocket, and threw a dart into the end zone where only his guy can catch it. Shadur Sanders is the, statistically, most accurate quarterback in Division I history. Okay? Only 2 years. But those two numbers...
That's 70% completion guy.
Unbelievable. And you saw that there. We saw some of the bad, and the thing that always people point out at Colorado, and we have seen in the NFL now, is him drifting backwards and kind of running around.
Goes 30 yards backwards,
you can't
and
do
ditches
that.
the ball.
There's a great moment on the sideline there that the Browns caught up with their mic'd up, and he was mic'd up, in which he was saying to Myles Garrett on the sideline, like, hey, I would love to do that against you. And he's like, yeah, you're a nice kid. Don't do that to me, basically. You don't need that from me. I'm coming after you. They've tried to coach that out of him. You saw that in the game, but you saw a guy that looked the part. The moment was not too big for him. And to be fair, he hadn't gotten a lot of reps. He is fourth on the depth chart for a reason. He was the fifth-round pick. Fifth-round picks don't start in the NFL. Russell Wilson's a third-round pick. People point to Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott, that was out of necessity.
Tony Romo
was hurt.
Brock Purdy started because Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt.
Exactly. You go back to the Bucks in the 70s, the expansion Bengals in the 60s. That's the last time a quarterback drafted in 6 or 7 or 8 ever got to play. When he was given the opportunity, which is all you can ask for, he nailed it, and this week will be fascinating.
And so if you're Kevin Stefanski, and again, you're around that team all the time, like you know the dynamics. My understanding through the offseason was they truly wanted to watch all these guys. Is it probably Flacco? Maybe.
Yeah,
but
probably.
To get the credibility in your locker room, if somebody else outplays him, you start the guy who's going to give you the best chance. But it was going to be hard for both Shadur or Dylan Gabriel to learn an NFL offense. They both had a long way to go in terms of that. How realistic is it here? Again, if Shadur continues this over, and we'll see how they handle the joint practices in the game this week, how realistic is it to say they give actual consideration to starting Shadur?
I think it is, and let's not aggregate this or clickbait this. I think it is
happening.
I think it is unrealistic. If you look at the Browns' schedule, it's home against Joe Burrow, on the road against Lamar Jackson, home against Jordan Love, on the road against Jared Goff, then home game in London against the Vikings, a well-rested Vikings team that would have played the week before
Then no
in
bye.
Dublin. Then no bye, and you come home on the road against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and they will be rested because they played week 4 in Dublin and are taking their bye week 5. That's a gauntlet. There's no way you're playing a rookie quarterback right out of the gate. It's just not going to happen. So in my eyes, it was always either Pickett or Flacco or Pickett. And right now, Kenny Pickett, we'll see what he can do in Philadelphia, just isn't ready for 11 on 11.
Which,
So
if
it's
you're not
likely
ready for
Joe
11
Flacco.
on 11 on August 12th,
Correct.
What are the odds that you are going to be able to close the gap and be on the field? Dylan Gabriel also, he returned to practice yesterday through camp. Like, if you're, again, comparing can be difficult because everybody's out there. Some are against the 2, some against the 3s.
Sure.
But Dylan Gabriel versus Shadur Sanders, what did you see?
It's a hard comparison to make because of what you just laid out. Dylan Gabriel is getting far more opportunities, at least through the first couple of weeks, than Shadur Sanders. He was, if you want to pay any attention to preseason game packet depth charts, which you should not, right? You know
But
this.
it's so fun.
PR makes them. Like, we've had
It says
It says
about the starting quarterback.
Right,
Let's tweet that 75 times.
Fun fact, I'm doing Kevin Stefanski's pre-game interview last Friday. And we're on tape. This played on the radio. And I said, by the way, like preseason depth charts, like who makes those? And he looks over to PR.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't know. Does PR make those? I don't even know.
Wow. Every coach blames PR.
Every coach blames PR.
And in reality, I don't know if that's always the case. I'm not accusing Kevin of anything. I'm just saying I don't know if that's always the case.
But there was this thing yesterday. Well, the week 2 depth chart is out. Nothing has changed. Can you remember in all your years covering the league when a preseason depth chart in the game book or the packet changed? It's not a horse race in August. Coaches don't want to tell you anything. They're not changing anything. Look at the reps.
The only time is if you name a starter at a position.
Correct.
They might move it.
It doesn't matter. Anyway.
All right. So I mean, he's right to a point about Gabriel. They did come back to practice it should be pointed out that after the game, Sanders did play with the 2s most of practice. 2 out of the 3 11 on 11 sessions with Gabriel going with the 3s, or a third. So you could say that he has made some headway there, or not. I don't know. Where do you come out on this, Pete?
I just looked at it as they saw an opportunity. They wanted to see if Shadur could carry over the momentum and see where it got him. Going with the 3s allows Dylan Gabriel, at least from a team standpoint, to sort of ease his way in. You get to create the circumstance you want for Shadur, and go from there. My bigger takeaway from Monday's practice is that Joe Flacco got every single first team rep. I am curious to see if that carries over, because if it does, then we've sort of got a hint that the Browns are now shifting towards, we're getting ready for the Bengals. We know who our guy is, and we're going to roll from there and continue to develop the other 3 guys.
Yeah, it's kind of been something I've been pounding the table about, is that this timeline has to take the format has to take a change at some point here. And it makes sense that it would be this week. In your mind, we continue to hear from people like Nathan Zagura and Aditi Kikawala that Kenny Pickett is still in this thing somehow. Do you see a world where somehow he ends up starting week 1 at this point, or are you pretty much sure it's going to be Flacco at this point?
If not for the hamstring injury, maybe that's true and there's a competition. But there's a hamstring injury, and there's no indication when he's truly going to be back. And while I still think he'll be on the roster to open the season, unless the Browns get blown away with a trade or something. I think that Hayes in the barn on that one in terms of, I don't think Flacco has enough time to catch. I don't think Pickett has enough time to catch Flacco at this point. I think Flacco is going to be where you go. One of the reasons I think that is the case is because, and he came in with this, Flacco has the trust of his teammates.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett might be able to get there, but the fact that he's sort of limited in what he can do sort of stunts that growth, that process of earning the trust of his teammates. And from that standpoint, it just makes it that much easier for them to roll with Flacco. They feel good about Flacco and just go from there, and then reevaluate as the first month goes or whatever.
Knowing what we know now, after just watching Sanders in one preseason game for whatever that's worth, and say, week one, for whatever reason, you had to put somebody in, not Pickett, so either Sanders or Gabriel, someone in the game for a series or a quarter or whatever, the end of the game, at this point, who would that be? I mean, we still have some preseason games to go, so we're going to get to see Gabriel operate in the same kind of a setting. So I guess it's an undetermined thing. But with what we saw on Friday night, I would say at this point, for me, it would have to be Sanders, right? Because at least he can operate the offense effectively. He was pretty good procedurally and made some very few mistakes, I thought.
Yeah, I don't think you can answer that question yet. Or at least I can't answer that question yet. I know, like, one of the things I want to see this week, I want to see Dillon Gabriel play against the Eagles. I want to see it personally, but I want to see what the Browns see, because the Browns really like Dillon Gabriel. There are plenty of people who want to crap on Dillon Gabriel and say he can't do this, that, and the other. The Browns like him. I want to see what they like. I mean, I know what I've seen from his college tape. I want to see if that translates. But I don't think, at least I'm not willing to make a declaration one way or the other on that yet. But certainly it helps Shadur that he's got proof of concept out there, that he played the game, led 3 scoring drives, granted, turnovers helped and all that. But he made a couple great throws, that looked like NFL caliber throws that beat a real defense, not just, backups. There are a lot of things that he needs to get better at. And he himself said as much. But if you go up based off that, I understand how you get to Shadur, but I'm not willing to go there yet. I want to see what Gabriel can do. I want to see why the Browns like him ultimately.
Yeah, I guess I'm basing that off of 2 days at camp as well, where I thought Gabriel didn't look great. But different setting, different scenario. I am suspect at this point if he will be able to keep up. I don't know. It'll be interesting. You suspect they each get a half this weekend, right?
Makes all the sense in the world for me, so long as Gabriel doesn't have a setback with his hamstring. That's as far as I know the plan in terms of they want Gabriel to play. I don't know how long, but yes, a half for both guys makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. That'll be big. They have to set themselves up for some kind of a depth chart at some point as they go into this regular season. Do you assume at this point, Pete, that they are just going to carry forward to the regular season roster?
Yes, it's just a question of how long that is. I'm working under the theory that 2 guys are going to be suspended. And as a result of 2 guys being suspended, that gives them 1 roster spot for an extra quarterback. And it's going to be easy to say that the 4 quarterbacks are among the best 53 players they have on the roster. And then it's just a question of what they're going to do with their other spot. Now, even if it's just 1 guy suspended, that would still be true. The question is, what happens when those 2 guys, if they're suspended, as I expect they will be, what happens when they come back? That sort of becomes potentially an artificial deadline. Maybe injuries will dictate at that point that they can keep a quarterback longer. I would think they're trying to trade somebody by the deadline, or at least see what's out there in terms of trade opportunities at the deadline and see what's there. I suspect at some point they're going to have to cut it down, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. The Browns are going to roll it with 4 quarterbacks for a good chunk of the season, if not the full thing. But my inclination is at some point it's going to get tiring to have 4 guys take up that much roster spot when, perfect world, only one of them's playing.
Yeah. Albert Breer today, I did see that Kenny saying that the Browns are just higher on Gabriel, period. I don't know how you can just make that proclamation at this point in the process. I get it from a draft. Yes, at the draft they were. But do we know that now? I don't know how you can make that proclamation. I don't know.
The argument for Gabriel comes down to what they believe he has between the ears, in addition to being a little bit athletic, certainly more athletic than Shadur Sanders. And how far that goes. Is that misplaced at some point? Potentially. But that's, they love what he can do in terms of understanding what needs to happen. But that's part of the reason among the many reasons I want to see him play Saturday. I keep hearing, people worry about, is that true? Or, in the same way that maybe Shadur wasn't as good in practice, that joint practice against the Panthers, but once, the Browns are calling a game plan that makes sense for him and these other things, does it click into place? Is that the same thing for Dillon Gabriel, where they've run play calls that maybe aren't necessarily in the best interest of Dillon Gabriel because they want to figure out what he can and can't do. When you get to Saturday, maybe there's some plays they call that are somewhat of a test, like that 4th and 1 empty call to me felt like a test for Shadur Sanders that he failed. But beyond that, I'm if they're calling plays that sort of fit Dillon Gabriel, does it start clicking and does he start looking like the guy that the Browns really like, or are we going to still see issues with accuracy? Are we going to still see issues where the height stands out as a problem, that you can't see the field? Are those things going to be there? But at least to me, one of the things I really liked about what I saw from Shadur Sanders, and I think is somewhat of a credit to the coaching staff, it felt seamless watching him go under center and turning his back on the defense. I never sensed that it was out of place or uncomfortable. Based on that, watching him in that game, you could have convinced me that he's been doing that for years in college. Yeah. It did not look like a guy who's never really done this. That's really important. I think that's valuable. But so the same question is going to be for Dillon Gabriel. Does the Browns coaching staff suddenly come up with a game plan that's really good for him and it's going to set him up for success? And we're now having the same conversation where, hopefully both guys play well on Saturday. Hopefully they torch the Eagles. I mean, that'd be obviously the best case scenario. But just figuring out, why Kevin Stefanski likes Dillon Gabriel so much. What is it about him, and is the game plan going to sort of showcase that player that people are questioning, even though the Browns are confident?
Yeah, got to see it at this point. I'm sure they will try to set him up for success. I guess one of my biggest questions is what does that look like? Do they have to move him out of the pocket all the time to be successful? Because that's a concern I have.
I don't know about all the time, but I suspect, going out on a limb, it's going to look a lot like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
When he was with the Browns, which was a whole lot of getting him outside the pocket, a whole lot of cutting the field in half. The stretch play action plays, stuff like that, some quick game, and then trying to open things up to allow him to attack deeper down the field. But yeah, I would imagine that it's going to be very reminiscent of what we saw when Baker Mayfield was in Cleveland.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right. On the topic of Stefanski, here is the afternoon drive at 92.3 commenting on Stefanski and the quarterback situation.
That I think happened on Friday is, if Kevin has any sort of preconceived notion with Shadur left, you can no longer tell us Shadur's not ready, because he played so much better than he should have by how the Browns talked about him previously, that is a way to keep Kevin Stefanski honest.
Oh, yeah. That's what makes all this stuff so important, is making sure that it keeps him honest. So how I had it phrased was, does this make you feel better about Stefanski?
No.
And
no.
but that answer for me was yes. I've not been pleased with the idea and what they tried to sell us on why Shadur wasn't getting the same opportunities, because I just never really bought into it. But the fact that he got 14 snaps today and the fact that he led the quarterbacks today in opportunities, I have to at least give Stefanski, and maybe he'll end up proving me wrong, but in this coming week, I have to give him the chance to go ahead and say that what he saw on Friday meant something and that he's going to build towards that, and this will be the opening that Shadur needed.
So
just everything they said is arbitrary. They are
Right.
making up goalposts that Kevin Stefanski never established. Like it suggests that it sort of feeds into this idea that Kevin Stefanski didn't want Shadur Sanders. The way they're phrasing it by saying, one, making it sound like Kevin Stefanski had no expectations that Shadur could be successful, which is crap. They know what he can do. That's why they called the plays they did. Now, certainly, could he have played worse and it had not been a big deal? Yeah. But he's played a ton of football. He played 4 years as a starter in college. This is not like, a raw project. Yes, there are things he's got to correct, but I find it just strange that you're basically asserting that the Browns thought he couldn't do this. If that was the case, why would they call the game plan they called? Just what I said, I thought they called a game plan that fit Shadur really well, even though they ran a bunch of things that he hadn't done in college. And it to me, it looked good. It looked smooth. It looked comfortable. I never got a sense. There were things like some wonky things that he did after the snap. But again, never looked uncomfortable turning his back to the defense. Never looked uncomfortable operating under center. So this idea that the Browns don't or didn't or whatever thought Shadur couldn't do it, I don't find that argument to be credible. I think this is people making up what they think the Browns thought about Shadur Sanders, in part because he was selected after Dylan Gabriel and because he was picked in the 5th round. But they know what Shadur it's not as if the Browns don't know what Shadur could do.
Right.
Yeah, they got him in the 5th round, and we heard Jimmy Haslam straight up say they did not expect he'd be there in the 5th round.
Yeah.
Coming out of the second day of the draft, Jimmy Haslam talked like they thought he was going to be one of the first picks of the 4th round, and that was going to be it. So the Browns found themselves in a situation where they could get him. I think, and I would say this in general, the Browns are not a team or coaching staff that puts a ceiling on a lot of their rookies. They are more than happy to let these guys sort of prove themselves in a way that they're going to be able to step on the field and produce. And let's expand on that. Harold Fannin is 21. Harold Fannin is going to basically, if he can handle it, he's going to basically start as a 3rd round, 21-year-old playing an incredibly difficult position in the NFL. The Browns are not going to sit there and go, well, we're going to put him in bubble wrap and handle him with kid gloves. If he can do it, they're going to put him out there. If Dylan Sampson can do it, I mean, there's obviously a little bit more pressure for him to do it because of the situation with Judkins. But this is true beyond, this year. DeJuan Jones was a 4th round rookie who went in and played at a really high level.
Yeah.
So the Browns don't set limitations on their guys. They are in an environment where they're going to let people sort of eat what they kill and earn their way. The Browns want to facilitate a situation where guys can thrive. And this was the whole stupid notion that the Browns were sabotaging Shadur Sanders or that the Browns wanted him to fail. And then lo and behold, not only does Shadur Sanders go out there and play well, he does it doing things that the Browns are trying to teach him. So I think, first and foremost, I give most of the credit to Shadur because he's worked his ass off.
Yeah.
And then I give a little bit of credit for the coaching staff because they have helped him start to correct some of the things that he needs to correct. And they've got a long way to go on some of that stuff. and allow him to do things that were allowed him to look to Andrew Siciliano's description, look like the kid at Colorado. That's what you want in terms of when you say that. Obviously, that you could say that and say that's both good and bad. But I think when you say that, it's more along the lines of focusing on the positive, focusing on the guy who, helped Colorado go to the bowl game, that won a bunch of games, all that stuff. So I think the artificial limitations being placed on there are entirely based off what, those two think, the Browns think, rather than what the Browns actually think.
Yeah, and the thing that's so funny is when they talk about that stuff, they're like, well, based off the messaging that the Browns have had about Shadur, or what they've been selling us about Shadur up to this point, well, they haven't been selling us anything. They haven't said anything about him except for we're going to mix and match reps. Like, they haven't gone into detail in the presser about like what he specifically needs to work on or this and that, at least that I haven't seen to the press, really, in once camp has started. So what are we talking about? We're just taking national narratives and using that as the Browns messaging, because they haven't gone out and said that, oh, he's behind or he's not doing this as well. No, they just said, they asked about reps and they said, yeah, we're going to mix and match reps. And then they're going based off of the reps that were given out up to this point. Yeah.
I mean, one, credit to Shadur and how he handles those press conferences, because he doesn't add unnecessary fuel to a fire that's already, people are already out of their minds watching him. But the Browns are conscious of what the outside world thinks. So they are very specific in their messaging. Because if they say anything that suggests either that, Shadur is doing great, then people are going to run with that. And if they say he's not doing great, then people are going to run with that. So a lot of their messaging is neutral, focusing on the process, focusing on specific points rather than talking in generalities, which allow people to sort of take it where they want. And that's important. I think that is entirely understanding of what Shadur is and what element he brings, largely, which is good. The energy is largely good around him, with some folks who, lose their minds. But yeah, I agree with your point. I think this is largely based on other people's narratives rather than the Browns' actual thought process.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go on to our next. This is another 92.3. This is the morning, guys. Talking about Gabriel and Sanders both.
Guy who, I'm sorry, guys. Even if you're the biggest hater in the world, then you may have your head up your ass. Fine. But even if you were skeptical and you were like, hey, the Browns are the Browns, they took another guy, I'm sure it's not going to work. Like, even if you were that way, you cannot tell me you didn't see something in there on Friday that was going, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something here with this guy. Like, you can't tell me a little tinge of you, unless you just hate the Browns through and through, and you just hate listening to us talk about the Browns, then I can't imagine there wasn't something that gave you a tinge of, okay, what if it did work? Because I don't see franchise, like, there is a world where you could see, hey, it was supposed to be a first-round talent, he ended up in the 5th round. Don't tell me there's not a world you could see where Shadur Sanders could be a franchise quarterback. I don't know how great the chances are. I'll admit he was great on Friday, but we still don't know. So I don't know how great the chances are. I can't see a world where Dylan Gabriel is a franchise quarterback. Doesn't it feel more and more as the days go by like, hey, man, and gosh, you're going to hate me for saying this. I got to say it. Don't you feel like this is the smartest guys in the room type of pick? Because you say it's draft currency. You say quarterbacks are currency. Andrew Bayer says that all the time. Were you planning on taking Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round to someday turn him into a 4th-round pick? Were you if that's his floor, like were you taking him in the 3rd round to maybe get another 3rd out of him?
That never made sense.
Because you have holes that you needed that if you did your scouting, maybe you could have found the guy. Like, don't think for a second, like, we won't be looking at this roster this year. They still probably won't be that great. But if you look at this roster this year, you go, boy, we could have got this guy or that guy in the third round, and maybe that guy could have been a ball player for us and contributed to this football team, because you can only play one quarterback. And where else am I going to put Dylan Gabriel out there on the field?
I hate the smartest guy in the room stuff so much. Drives me crazy. That's just the assumption that they think that way. However, at the time of the pick, I didn't like it. I thought it was too early. And I pointed out that there was a lot of guys coming off the board in front and behind him that the Browns could have used. So I'm not going to say that I didn't think twice about where they took him, when they took him, but that's kind of pointless to rehash at this point, I guess. The point is, I guess, whether you can see Gabriel as a franchise quarterback, and we're yet to see him play.
So I wouldn't have taken him in the third round. I said I evaluated him. I thought he was a day 3 pick. The smartest guy in the room thing is a shot at Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry didn't make the pick. And we all said at the time, because this was the argument from people who wanted to take Shadur Sanders at 2. Let Kevin Stefanski pick his quarterback. Well, he did.
Yep.
He picked Dylan Gabriel. So if you're saying it's the smartest guy in the room pick, then you're basically saying Kevin Stefanski has no idea what he's looking at and shouldn't be allowed to make those picks. And to me, that's silly. The other part that makes it silly is we haven't seen him do anything yet. He's been here for 20 minutes.
Right.
Do I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be a long-term starter? I do not. I think he's a long-term backup. But I want to see them do with this. I want to see them see what they've got. But if you're telling me that Dylan Gabriel is an excellent backup for the extent of his rookie contract or for 2 contracts or whatever, I'm happy with that. Like, I heard some of this on my, I heard some of this conversation, and like his argument was basically like, well, the Browns should have used that pick on something that was going to help them sooner. I don't care. I want players that are going to be good and help this team in the long run. If Dylan Gabriel is going to give you, 4 to 8 years of service as being a good backup, the Browns need that. The Browns need one of those things. But beyond, from a larger standpoint, this all comes back to the one single point. The Browns don't have a quarterback. And until they have a quarterback, nothing else matters in the long run. Yes, you can build up your team. Yes, you can do some things. Yes, you can make it to the playoffs. But they're not going to win the Super Bowl, which is ultimately the goal, until they have a quarterback. And even if more than likely it is a 5% chance that any of these guys they pick after the first round is going to be a franchise quarterback eventually, 5%, all that is. If Dylan Gabriel gets picked by the Miami Dolphins and becomes a great quarterback, then we look back at this and suddenly we go, why didn't the Browns pick Dylan Gabriel? Because we've done this with every other quarterback we find that's been picked later in the draft. Why didn't the Browns pick Brock Purdy? Why didn't the Browns pick Dak Prescott or whoever the hell it is? The only way this happens is if you play the game. So, look, if the Browns were going to take a quarterback earlier, great. I've said all along, I would have much preferred, and I wish he was still available, and I wish the Browns would have picked him earlier. I would have taken Jalen Milroe. That was my guy. I would have wanted that situation. I like Jalen Milroe better than Sanders. I would have wanted Jalen Milroe. Kevin Stefanski said, I want Dylan Gabriel. So be it. I'm going to let him do it. It may not work, but if he's a long-term backup, so be it. If Dylan Gabriel is out of the league in 3 years, then yes, this is a problem. But no, I don't look at it as the smartest guy in the room pick. I look at it as the Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the team and quarterback guy, making the pick. And if he can become Case Keenum, the left-handed version of Case Keenum, you will be happy with that pick.
I guess I would push back a little bit with a 3rd round pick, and you're giving it to your head coach, and he has a choice of the people on the board, and then he comes away with a long-term backup. I mean, it's not that hard to find in the NFL a capable backup, is it? I mean,
Based on what I've seen in Cleveland, I would say it is because they haven't had one.
well, I mean, they they kind of have. I mean, they had 5 quarterbacks in 1 year and won 11 games with them, and then they had, Case Keenum, and then they had,
Case Keenum was so good. He was so good they didn't want to put him on the field.
And then they had Jameis Winston.
He was here for a minute.
I know.
And
I'm just
not
saying
really built,
that
he's not really wired to be a backup.
With a 3rd-round pick, you should expect more than a career backup, shouldn't you?
You're taking a shot, hoping you get more than that. But if you get a career backup, so be it. As long as they're good, as long as they're good. So if whether it's Shadur Sanders in a really unlikely scenario, although it would be great, or let's say the Browns draft a quarterback next year, and that guy is the franchise answer, and it's everything we hope he would be, but he's going to be out for 3 weeks. And you need to win at least one of those games. Be better if you won 2. You want to have a quarterback that can step in and be able to function. And there are any number of teams in the league where the second their starting quarterback goes down, that team is boned. And the Browns, I don't think they're wrong for thinking in that terms. Now, are they putting the cart in front of the horse and the fact they don't have the franchise guy first? Perhaps. But they like Dylan Gabriel. And the thing we're finding out, because at the time, one of the arguments was that no one wanted Dylan Gabriel that early. And now we're finding out there's a bunch of teams that really like Dylan Gabriel and kind of are hoping the Browns would trade him. Now, are they potentially potentially lowballing the Browns? Very possible, even likely. But nevertheless, one of the teams that likes Dylan Gabriel is exactly who I thought would like Dylan Gabriel. And I thought would try to draft Dylan Gabriel. So I want to see it play out before I get too worried about this. And part of the problem is that this argument is based off Shadur Sanders playing 1 preseason game.
Well, yeah. I mean, this isn't even really about. Yes, we have to see. You're right. We have to see what Gabriel is first. This is just
all of this becomes immediately erased and irrelevant and forgotten about if Dylan Gabriel goes out and plays well against the Philadelphia Eagles.
For a minute, it does.
Yes,
right?
I mean, at least for that we're not talking about smartest guy in the room crap in that moment. We're moving on and going, he played well. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah. I would just, if
I've
it's
said it
Kevin's,
before, I'm thinking it would not have been my pick in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
That's
my
I'm right
thing.
there with you. But I'm not going to go against what I said the whole entire time, which was I want Kevin Stefanski to pick his guy. He did.
Come on, Kevin. If you get a chance to pick your guy, why are we picking a guy that's 5'7" or whatever?
Yeah, but at least it didn't involve taking Shadur Sanders at 2 or 33, and they got him in the 5th round.
Agreed. Was it planned? Fell ass backwards into it, but that's okay.
Some of the draft is luck, and some of it is making your own luck in the sense that they were lucky that Shadur Sanders was there as late as he was, but they made their own luck in the sense that they didn't let him wait any longer, traded up and went and got him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, he still could prove me wrong, everybody wrong, and be great. And that would be fantastic because all we want is really just an answer at quarterback, no matter who it is. To answer your question in the chat, Lenny, the Browns are not going to trade Shadur Sanders. No.
It's possible. It's just really unlikely. But here's the other part about this, and the thing that gets forgotten. I think we're also, and I don't think Ken means to be, he's extraordinarily short-sighted with this.
Yeah.
The best case scenario for next year is the Browns. Well, I should say the best case scenario is one of the rookies becomes the franchise quarterback.
Yes.
Second best scenario, if that can't happen, the Browns draft the exact quarterback they want in round 1. And then they roll into camp with that quarterback, Shadur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel. And they've got 3 guys they really like, and they want to work with those guys. And though, hopefully you get a couple good quarterbacks out of that. Set up your depth chart for years to come. Get the franchise quarterback, obviously being most important. But you've got 3 swings at finding the right quarterback, which is all I can ask for at this stage of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's also fair to hope that one of these guys shows that they are the guy, and you never even have to go down that road, right? And those can be other assets, right? So, all right, you're watching the React. That's Pete Smith. I'm Brad Ward. Here is this is the 33rd team. They reviewed a bunch of rookies. I guess their first performances, their debuts on preseason week 1. So let's take a look at what they thought here.
He's that, or he would lead this incredible.
No, as I said, I don't. So number one, they didn't ask him to do the one thing that everyone's sort of looking to see. What happens when he's playing offensive drive, then go straight into defensive drive, then go straight back into offensive drive. But I don't think that means that's not the plan. I think that just means they didn't want to do that preseason game 1, and I don't have a problem with that.
Let's go to his Colorado teammate, Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They did talk about Travis Hunter kind of getting out physicaled multiple times. You know,
he took one real bad angle.
Yeah,
and it made him get little boyed by Steelers running back because he needed to take away the outside shoulder. He didn't. That allowed them to get a big run. He looks fast as a corner. I wasn't, there were people arguing, was it a slip? Would he have gotten out had he not sort of taken a second because they were operating him out of the slot? I don't know. Obviously, it was a very small sample size. I'm curious to see where this thing goes, but the physicality is a piece that I do worry about based on what I saw in college.
Yeah. Kind of got his head dribbled off the ground too. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to watch it that closely to see how that develops. One of the bigger things that I thought, one of the better points made that I thought with the whole Browns Jacksonville trade was that they have a coach and a GM who had never seen their team together or been in a practice together, and to make that kind of a swing is ballsy. You know what I mean, to say the least. Either way, we'll see how it works out. Here they are talking about Sanders.
Let's hot button issue here. Shadur Sanders, his debut was fantastic overall. I think for the Browns. Shadur looked very comfortable. 2 touchdowns, probably his best throws of the day. Finished 14 of 23, $138, 2 touchdowns, as I mentioned. Also scrambled a couple times and looked pretty good from a movement perspective. What were your initial thoughts on Shadur Sanders? We did an instant reaction right after the show, and listen, the people want to discuss Shadur Sanders. I would say it's one of the biggest. It's the biggest. Somewhat random.
When was the last time a 5th round pick had this kind of?
I mean, that's unfair to say.
Well, why did you know, Pete? Like when they drafted him, did you realize that like his fan base is this crazy? Like not crazy, like the people aren't crazy, but some are, but that it stretches this far, like the fandom of Shadur Sanders reaches to the Jamie Foxxes and actors and athletes of the world all tweeting on a preseason game to cheer on Shadur Sanders. It's like, is that the Dion factor? I mean, what is that? Like, I never imagined that it would be this big of a story and there would be this big of a following for him. I didn't realize that, I guess, going through the draft process.
Yeah. One note, as I see in the chat, Carson Beck is never a thing. Stop it. That's embarrassing. Carson Beck sucks. Now, to your point, look, some of this is the Dion factor, undoubtedly. Some of this just comes down to the perception of him falling. Like him falling, how he handled it, all that stuff, I think, won him a lot of people who are in his corner. They want, now he's become an underdog. He's become somebody that everybody wants to see do well because, look, his draft fall captured the attention of so many people in an event that amounts to picking players. But the president of the United States tweeted about him being drafted. So it was a huge deal. So I think that's the other big part. Yes, there was a huge fandom. There's a fandom of people who like Deion at Jackson State that carried over to Colorado. There are people still from Jackson State who like Shadur. Then you add on people from the Colorado fan base who like him. You've still got all the people who like Deion. And then you do the draft thing where he goes and he falls and there's this perception that it was unjust, that it was unfair, and that has rallied people to his cause. And to his credit, he has handled this with grace and dignity in a way that has sort of brought more people into his tent. There were a whole lot of people waiting to jump on him with both feet because they thought he was not going to handle this like he did and complain. That was the dad that did that, saying at one point ridiculously that the league was trying to punish and hurt him, which makes no sense. But whatever, there's the perception that there was an unfairness to Shadur Sanders. And there are people, even I've heard national media people say this, that because of this whole process, they're actively rooting for Shadur Sanders. So from that standpoint, look, it's the biggest sport in this country. So that's the other part is it's the NFL. And because he's a big story. And one last element that helps is it's in Cleveland where there's a place for him to go. There's a starting job for him to win. Mm-hmm. If this was in Buffalo, he would basically be, not forgotten. There would be certainly people who want to watch him and watch the preseason, but he's not going to overtake
play over Josh Allen.
Allen. Or if he was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, he's not going to get over Joe Burrow. Or if he goes to Kansas City, he's not going to get over Patrick Mahomes. That's the element that adds to this whole thing. Had he gone to either Cleveland or New Orleans, he became a big deal because there was a path to the field that could be relatively quickly. So these are all things that, yes, I'm not surprised that it has taken on a life of its own.
Yes, Kenny, I did see that. That's why I was asking that question. Yeah, I get it. That's exactly why I was posing the question about that. It's like the number one story in the NFL every time you turn on an NFL show right now. And that's wild. But it is.
But I would say it's the most individual player hype on both ends of the spectrum since Tim Tebow, where no matter what happened, right? Like Tim Tebow would go 2 for 15 in a game and people are like, you don't believe he's a leader. He's this, he's that. Or he would lead this incredible comeback and actually have some good plays. And somebody would be like, no, he's terrible. He's got this long throwing motion. But more so on the other side, there were just some unbelievable Tebow believers and fanatics.
Always. And still
no matter where he signed.
There are people that will be like, he could have made it. He was a victim of the system.
I still believe he could play tight end for Urban Meyer. I still believe he could play outfield for the Mets. Like, there are still believers. The same thing with Shadur Sanders, to the point where if you say one negative thing, I didn't really like this one pass, it's like, no, you don't believe in Shadur. You're just, So it's as hot button, I think, as Tebow right now.
Yeah, it really is. It's wild discourse. Like, it is dangerous out there in the Twitter jungle tweeting about Shadur Sanders because people are just looking for anything. If you tweet anything that isn't universal praise coming off the back of this game, you're a hater. You want him to fail. You hate the Sanders. You're mad at Deion, like all that kind of stuff, right? Conversely, if you're like, praising anything in the game, it's like, well, come on, this is preseason, it's meaningless, it's blah, blah, blah. So, look, I think we're on fairly safe ground on this show as impartial, middle-of-the-road, rational take givers. And when it comes to Shadur, both of us ranked him as QB2 in this draft, right? I said he was closer to QB1 than he was the rest of the pack, the Jackson Darts, the Tyler Shucks of the world. I thought the Browns should have taken him at 2 overall. I also think they did a great job getting him in the 5th round when they decided not to do that, when their approach was to basically bail on quarterback in this draft until lower down. Even after drafting Dylan Gabriel, eventually they got to the 5th and decided, what the hell? Let's roll the dice. Like, what's the worst that could happen at this point? Let's take a shot at it, right? So I kind of liked all of that. And all that goes to say, look, he didn't win the job based off this game, but he was given an unusual opportunity where he still, or certainly going into this game, he was probably QB4 in the depth chart. He had been getting very little, if anything, in terms of like first team reps during training camp. He's behind Dylan Gabriel, who was drafted 2 rounds ahead of him. He's behind Joe Flacco, who's the presumed number 1 quarterback going into the regular season. And he was behind Kenny Pickett, who was just, a guy on the roster. But 2 of those guys were out with a hamstring heading into this game, and the other one is old man Flacco, who they're probably not going to play in much, if any, of preseason because he's going to be the week 1 starter. So all of a sudden, Shadur gets this weird opportunity to say, hey, you're getting the start in preseason week 1, and by the way, you're probably going to play most of the game because the only other option available signed like 2 days ago. So go out there and have fun. And he did. He went out there with that rare gift of a quarterback who actually wants a chunk of preseason snaps and played well, looked in charge, looked in control, looked poised relative to the situation, and definitely raised some eyebrows.
Yeah, and look, my takeaway on a lot of the quarterbacks is they looked a lot like they did 8-9 months ago, a lot like they did in the draft process. I thought Shadur Sanders, accuracy-wise, was very good. His first touchdown, thread the needle, between 2 defenders was outstanding. I thought his pocket movement on the second touchdown and then finding the open man, nice scheme, and then Shadur, bought time because there was quick pressure there. I thought that was outstanding as well. A couple plays where he was trying to evade defenders, wasn't able to do it, but I don't think it was detrimental. I think that was a big question. Man coverage early on, he reads it, he's got nothing there, he picks up a first down with his legs. So yeah, there was some really nice accurate throws in there. I thought he was okay managing the pocket, had a few nice plays in there. And overall, it's extremely positive. It was against a couple series against the Panthers starters. It wasn't that exclusively.
Right.
They had a short field after a turnover on one of those on that first touchdown. So overall, it was extremely positive. And I think the bottom line is when we say, look, Dylan Gabriel's ahead of him on the depth chart, that's been the truth to this point. The Browns also drafted Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shadur Sanders. But what we said way back in our, hey, what should happen this year? For me, the best case scenario for the Browns is Shadur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel plays as much football as possible. Whoever plays better wins the job. At some point, you don't want Joe Flacco as your starting quarterback because one of these rookies has played so well that you don't need to see what you have in almost 40-year-old Joe Flacco. You want to see what you have in the rookies because, oh, by the way, you've got 2 first-round picks next year. And there's a lot more quarterbacks coming out. So I think Shadur, at the very least, has earned way more reps with the 1s and the 2s and challenge him. Challenge these rookies and see what you can get out of them. As far as the challenge goes, Shadur passed this first test with the Browns backups going up against the Panthers 1s for a little bit. He absolutely passed the first test.
Yeah, so that's an important piece of context. He was working with a 2nd and 3rd string unit throughout this game. At least to start with, he went up against the Panthers' starting defense, albeit minus a player or 2. And look, this is like people will try and minimize that as a thing because, the Panthers had a bad defense last year. It's like that conversation of would the worst team in the NFL beat Alabama in a given year? The worst team in the NFL would stomp Alabama
They're better
by
than
50
Baylor.
points.
Right. They're better than Texas Tech.
They would stomp the best college team by 30, 40, 50 points every single year, right? That's the gulf between those two. So the worst starting unit in the NFL is significantly better than a backup unit, right? That's the difference we're talking about here. And, okay, he went 3 and out in that first drive. He shouldn't have, though. Like, the 3rd down conversion, he put the ball in the right place. The tight end bobbled it, didn't run to the sticks either, so it was half a yard short.
I think if he catches it cleanly, it's a first
Probably
down.
a first down as well. But certainly he could have caught it cleanly or he could have run himself past the marker. Either one of those things probably makes that a first down. The point is, Shadur put the ball where it needed to be a first down on that play, didn't get rewarded for it. But that's a significant thing. And then he went out there and played well. Overall, I mean, look, this is the narrative about him at draft time was this is probably the most accurate quarterback in this draft. His big problem is what happens. Look at all his sort of behavior under pressure and look at how much pressure he was under behind a god-awful offensive line at Colorado. The question was, what happens when you change the volume of pressure he's under? And at least in this game, you saw a bit of that, right? The tendencies are still there for some, not necessarily ideal behavior under pressure, running backwards, trying to play, trying to get away from things. And sometimes it works and sometimes it's not going to. But I think already you saw, if you just dial down the amount he's under pressure, you see a much more calm, behaved, poised version of Shadur Sanders in the pocket generally, because that kind of thing has an effect. But the point you made is critical, right? Like, what is your takeaway from this? Well, the takeaway isn't Shadur is amazing. He's going to be the number one quarterback of this draft. He's going to the Hall of Fame, right? The take is, okay, the Browns should be looking at this and saying, we need to have a look at him now, seriously, like as an option. Before, it's like, sure, we'll roll the dice, but he's fourth on the depth chart and getting no reps. Now it's like he just showed you he deserves reps. So if you're not looking at this coming out of this game as Cleveland and saying, let's give him some first-team looks, let's give him a real chance to move himself up the depth chart, well, now you're doing him a disservice.
The one other thing I'll add, we all said, like, have you ever seen this for a fifth-round pick? He's not your typical fifth-round pick because the consensus, the expectation was that he was going to go in the first. Now, you could say, well, the consensus was wrong, the media was wrong, but there was still enough people, like any quarterback, there was enough people that probably said he's a first-round caliber quarterback. At worst, a second-round type of quarterback, and then he falls because of off-field, whatever happens, right? Plus a little bit of scarcity. At the end of the day, though, the goal is to get the most productive football players. And if the thing that made him fall isn't so much the on-field, if he's producing on the field, then the Browns have to give him those opportunities, right? Continue to prove us wrong, right? Continue to prove the entire NFL wrong that you were on your way to going undrafted. We stopped the slide in round 5 and just continue to prove it wrong. And if the reason that he fell eventually comes back to bite, then it comes back to bite. Fine. But, give him opportunities.
Well, it's a really weird dynamic because...
Would he have gone undrafted?
What? No. I mean, clearly no. I also think there's more on-field stuff that teams were wary of with him that contributed to his fall.
Sure. But, I mean... I had a early second grade on him. I mean, where did you have him?
Second round, but I had multiple guys in front of him. Jackson Dart. I had Jackson Dart, number 2, who looked very impressive against the Giants, or for the Giants in his first preseason game. Obviously, that fade throw looked really good. And then I had Jalen Milroe ahead of him, who ultimately went in the third round of the Seahawks.
No, he made it sound like they stopped him from going undrafted. Was his comment, and I was just asking, like, do you think that he would have continued to fall had the Browns not selected him, and into what point? Like, who would have taken him?
Well, at one point there was talk that the Denver Broncos were planning on making a move for him. I don't remember if that was trying to call and try to convince him that he should come as an undrafted free agent or use a pick on him. But, like, let's use Miami as an example. I would like to think they would have picked Shadur over Quinn Ewers, for example.
Right. That makes sense.
Or Shadur going to, I think, the Colts as opposed to the Notre Dame kid.
Sorry, Ian. I was just commenting on what he said on the show there. Apologize to everybody.
I don't think anybody would tell you that he was a fifth round. Well, not anybody. Okay. Most people would not argue that he was a fifth round player based purely off the tape, right? The reason he fell that far is because of the circus that comes with him. And whether that is thinking that Dion would be more involved than he appears to be right now, whether that was simply what we're talking about, that he's like the most polarizing, hyped, person in the NFL since Tim Tebow, right?
Or that Nike was doing celebration tweets after a
Exactly.
2-touchdown
It's
preseason game.
It's just however you want to term it, and this does not necessarily mean it's his fault, right? But this comes with him. So I'm sure there are plenty of teams that simply did not want to deal with this at all, right? Regardless of how good you think the quarterback is. And if you don't think he's great to begin with, you certainly don't want any part of this. And that's why even at draft time, people were saying once he gets out of the first round, once he gets beyond, the Saints at the top of the second, he's going to fall for a while because the math changes. Now he's a backup. And do you want this as a backup? Again, doesn't mean it's his fault. But, do you want Nike hyping up your backup quarterback when he makes a pass in, random third-string training reps, right? No, most teams don't. So that changes everything. However, the Browns chose Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shadur Sanders. So even if you say, look, he's better than a fifth-round pick on the field, and the Browns sort of went out there and said, we actually think Dylan Gabriel in the mid to low rounds is a better option than Shadur Sanders. So he's in this weird spot where he has to, overcome a guy that his own team effectively said is better as a prospect.
Right. And look, eventually the on-field play is all that matters, but they're going to give Dylan Gabriel opportunities because just as of 2 weeks ago, they thought he was a better option.
Yeah.
And so how much has actually changed?
And I also think, because Dylan Gabriel was a third-round draft pick, that's a high enough pick that he's almost certainly safe on the roster.
Yeah.
I don't really see a world where Dylan Gabriel gets cut heading into the season. I think there was...
I think, Pete, it's safe to say, at least for me, I feel safe saying that they are both a lock for the roster at this point.
Yeah, unless something weird happens, they're going to keep all four, at least initially.
So with joint practices coming up this week and Pickett, I want to get into some of the depth chart stuff here before we get into our last couple videos. But if we look back at, before we get into more quarterback stuff, if we look back at the game, what was outside of quarterback? What were your biggest takeaways? I know we talked about the physicality. Any players individually that stood out to you? Carson Schlesinger.
He was good. He's doing exactly what the Browns need him to do. He's a big physical presence in the middle. Now, most of the plays he got were plays he's supposed to make. The one that I sort of really liked from him was when Cameron Mitchell was playing way too far off of Ted McMillan with those two backers in the middle, in sort of like a sugar rush type look from the two backers. And Schlesinger was able to drop back and tackle him based on that hook curl zone. That was, to me, a good play. But I like his physicality overall. I think that's why Jim Schwartz wanted him. That's the presence that he's been wanting in the middle. That's important. Mason Graham was fine. I think he did fine against double teams. The one he got sort of toppled over, he was quick to point out in a press conference when he was asked about it, pad level and feet, and he's right. But when we get to real football, I'll be very curious to see when Myles Garrett and Malik Collins are on the same front, how many double teams is he going to get? And if he does, what is that going to mean for those other guys? But still, I was pretty happy with that. The guys I'm obsessed with are Cameron Thomas and Aiden Huntington. Cameron Thomas was all over the field.
Yes.
I know there are people like, well, Julian Okwara had 2 sacks. He beat crappy tackles with the same move twice and got 2 sacks. More power to him. He did very well.
He looked quick.
Yeah, he looked fine. One of those sacks, had he not gotten there a half step first, would have been Cam Thomas. But Cam Thomas, in terms of winning pass rush, pursuit, special teams, he's everywhere. He's going to make that a complicated conversation. And then Aiden Huntington, who has largely been playing inside, on the defensive line is intriguing. Now, the stuff that he did on there wasn't all that impressive, although he did get a sack. Although
Needs
that
a
was
new
likely,
number.
huh?
He needs a new number.
Yeah, undoubtedly, 66 is not working. The sack he got was by virtue of the former Clemson defensive end bending out when he recognized screen, and it forced Andy Dalton to
Henry
fall down and trip over his own feet. But it was watching a 280-pound man be like the featured dude on kickoff and punt.
Yeah.
And he was even on punt return.
Yeah.
I have I've said that I am more confident that he will make the roster than any of the undrafted rookies. Cam Thomas is certainly interesting from that standpoint. Are they going to force a conversation where I don't think Huntington's going to be subjected to waivers because I don't think they're going to get him back. I think he will be gone.
53.
Yeah, he's. I have him on the roster.
Yeah.
The question becomes, do they think so highly of Thomas based on what he's done and his fit and everything he's doing that they say, okay, we're going to move Huntington to D tackle since that's where he's largely playing anyway, and move one of the defensive tackles off the roster. Unfortunately, that would likely be Shelby Harris, who celebrated his 34th birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Shelby Harris. I'm at least floating the idea that you're going to be released. Even though Shelby Harris has been great. Shelby Harris has been exactly what the Browns needed him to be when they got him, but he's 34. And if the Browns feel like there's more of a future with Huntington and Thomas, then I think they're ultimately going to defer and say, we're going to bet on the future and bet on these younger guys. Cam Thomas has been around the league, but he's only 25. Huntington, 23, I think. To round out that dot. And the other thing Shelby Harris is not going to do, he's not going to be on all those special teams, which is always going to help a guy make a case. So that stood out to me. Amani Marshall stood out to me. No, go ahead.
Yes. Before we go to Marshall, because I want to talk about him, he definitely stood out. If we're looking at the defensive line right now, right? Malik Collins, Mason Graham, is it possible that they do something depending on Mike Hall's health to sneak one of these guys on?
I don't think so.
Okay. You think Hall's healthy for week 1?
He's going to be activated. Jawan Briggs is going to be retained, and it's just a question of, is it Harris, or are they going to decide Huntington is a defensive tackle and move him inside permanently?
All right. So,
and then it's Myles Garrett, Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and then it's either Aiden Huntington, or if they move him inside and go defensive tackle, then Cam Thomas becomes the 5th guy.
Yeah, couldn't they just switch the two? Then you don't have to get rid of Shelby, right?
What do you mean switch the two?
No, you would. You'd be one too many, huh?
Now, as we discussed previously, if the Browns are going to face 2 suspensions, they have 1 roster spot. Do they play around with it and hold on to it? If it's a question of Shelby Harris, I think the Browns would go to Shelby Harris and say, listen, we're going to release you and let you go to somewhere you want to go. He's been good enough to earn that. He's 34. He's got 1 million kids. I think they will give him the respect and say, we're just going to release you and let you, in his case, potentially go to a contender because he can help a football team. I have no doubt about that. It comes down entirely to future planning. So that is your defensive line situation, unless somebody gets hurt.
Yeah. So you got basically 1 too many guys you want to keep right now. Yeah. It doesn't really. Maybe you can just keep him on the roster. Just make it, and take from someplace else. Like maybe you only need to carry 5 receivers on this roster.
Again, you could, but at some point the rubber's got to meet the road because you're having potentially 3 inactive defensive linemen.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right, go. You were going to talk about the running back Amani Marshall, who was outstanding. Go ahead.
So my theory of the case has been the Browns are going to find a running back coming off another roster on waivers, or perhaps a player we're not going to keep for a player you're not going to keep type trade. However, Amani Marshall at least forced me to take him seriously with what he did on Friday.
He did.
The blocking certainly helps him, but it's the way he competes and the way he just does his job. He got yardage he was supposed to get, and then the one situation where he was sort of caught in an awkward spot, he managed to beat a tackle attempt and managed to find a way to get positive yards. Nothing about Amani Marshall is dynamic, but when you can be counted on to do your job, it can go a long way with the coaching staff. And seemingly Amani Marshall does his job. So that is the big argument for him. I'm still inclined to think that the Browns maybe get very tempted from what they see when, we start planning for cutdowns and stuff, and that ultimately somebody's going to potentially be better that can come in and play. But if not, or they just decide we really like this kid, I can see the appeal, even if I think it's only going to go so far.
The as they were talking about in the chat, Serge mentioning the ability to get over on that pass protection block on the touchdown pass was high level stuff from him. And with the rest of the room, as you mentioned, his ability just to block in general would make him an asset. I thought Trevion Williams was interesting as well.
Yes, I thought he did a nice job. He's just another in the Pierre Strong sort of lane. So if they like that, they could keep it. I still think it's more likely that they would try to get that type of entity onto the practice squad rather than keep 4 or make that the third guy. I think they're going to want another back with size on some level, or somebody who can play in the backfield and carry the ball. Not to say that Trevion Henderson can't, but to the point where they want somebody who can consistently be back there and not be sort of a gadget player, a scat back, because they've already got Dylan Sampson.
What do we know? We don't know anything about what's going to happen with Judkins.
We don't. I mean, until something is finalized, either he comes to an agreement with the case, it's some type of plea deal, or charges are dropped. That seems really unlikely. Or there's an understanding that this is truly not going to get decided until next year. The Browns decide to sign him to some kind of contract, which presumably would be either forfeit guarantees or includes some sort of language which sort of allows him to get them back in, most likely be games played.
Yeah.
Since the suspension would obviously impact that, that could allow him to get those bonuses and basically say, we're going to let you play this year, because they're not going to, they're going to sign him at some point, because they're not going to just leave him unsigned, because at some point, after a year, he will re-enter the draft. So that's sort of where we're at in that holding pattern, waiting for an answer.
And you want to force the NFL's hand to make a decision on whether they're going to suspend him now or next year. You don't want him to just miss time and then have him suspended later, as well, and have a double dip on him, right? Yes.
And also, I just think the Browns want an answer, on what's going to happen with him specifically. I don't think, obviously they would have to do it at some point in terms of negotiating a contract, but I think they want this thing settled, the court element decided before they do anything else, if they can help it.
Which now looks like it could be next year. So,
yeah, that would be that. Eventually, they sign him. He plays this year, and it becomes like Rashee Rice's case, which Rashee Rice had his whole traffic thing, and then played the whole season because it didn't get adjudicated until this offseason, and now he's getting suspended this year. Justin Jefferson, or not Justin, the other receiver from Minnesota, similar situation. They waited. The case waited, and now he's getting 3 games this year.
All right. Let's look at there are some interesting options out there in the free agent market at running back, or there will be some other ones as well. So there are other options out there too. Let's talk about wide receiver real quick. Luke Flourier is IR, right, or waived, and then potentially if he clears waivers, will come back to the IR. But he's done. Of all you other guys, your Gages, your Larvidanes, your Caden Davises, all your wide receivers that have, Keyshawn Johnson, Cade McDonald, all these guys after Deontay Johnson, they all played well. And they all kind of had a moment. Nobody really separated. Does it feel like, though, that Larvidane's speed gives him the edge up on this? I mean, he's made some good plays. With Flourier gone, is it between him and Caden Davis to make this roster? Or do you think they go outside the roster still for a wide receiver?
I think Larvidane's speed and return ability gives him 2 chances to make the roster.
Okay.
He can return kicks. Almost broke a punt that got an ankle pick. But if that doesn't happen, he potentially scores.
Yeah.
That makes him more interesting if they believe he can sort of recreate that, because there's a world where he could potentially beat out the guy you hate, DeAndre Carter, if they believe that he's now viable at both receiver and returner. Now, it remains to be seen how real that possibility is. Caden Davis catches a number of plays throughout camp. He's intriguing. And, has a little bit of size. He's not a waif from that standpoint. Cade McDonald is in that Luke Flourier vein. In terms of undersized slot receiver with a ton of muscle, stop-start ability, can sort of just find his way to get open. I think he's probably got to get going more to sort of make a better argument for himself. And I think it's the same with Keyshawn Johnson, though Keyshawn Johnson's more of an outside receiver, muscled up, short. That's why was undrafted. He's like 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that, but he's thick. I think he needs to continue to, push the foot on the accelerator. I mean, I think, beyond just sort of the stat sheet of 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, Caden Davis, that certainly helps. But it does seem as though, relative to what we hear about from practice and some of the other stuff, that he's been a consistent target that the quarterbacks like to throw to, in the same way that Gage Larvidane is somebody that particularly Shadur and then Joe Flacco has found at times. Those things can help you. But yes, speed absolutely helps Gage Larvidane. And that could be an answer. Now, to your question, I don't think we're going to see some great receiver get cut loose. Hell, I'm extraordinarily bitter because the guy I wanted as an undrafted free agent, Darius Cooper, is now crushing it for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I doubt they're going to let him go. But that was my dude that I would have happily taken out of Tarleton State to be an undrafted free agent receiver. But I don't see a whole lot of guys that are going to get cut loose that are compelling enough that the Browns are going to cut the guys they have in their on the team already. I am surprised to sort of get to this point, honestly, because there's a little element of, you've got 7 of these guys seemingly.
Yes.
None of them, by virtue of the fact that none of them is really separating, it's easy to sort of lend yourself to believe that none of them are good. Then, if they're all that sort of mediocre, that none of them can separate. But it may be that they have guys who are, reasonably good relative to being borderline NFL talent. And for the Browns' benefit, there's very good reason to believe that they'll be able to get 2 of those guys to the practice squad, for example.
Yes, which makes me turn back towards, maybe you keep Gage. You don't have to keep DeAndre Carter then and waste a roster spot. And there are, I know you don't think there's going to be I don't think there's going to be great players out there, but I think there will be intriguing ones that are going to have to clear waivers. Like Green Bay can't keep 8 receivers, right? Neither can New England.
Unfortunately, is it Reed that's dealing with an injury right now that could linger? And, are we going to see some sort of roster shenanigans in terms of injuries,
gymnastics? Yeah,
that is very possible. But I believe it's Jaden Reed who's dealing with a foot issue with the Packers or something along those lines.
We also be watching. I think New England has too many guys and
too many crap receivers in New England. I agree.
And three of them are on rookie deals. If Javon Baker gets cut, I'm all for bringing a guy like that in here.
I am very intrigued by Javon Baker based off what he did in college. I'll be curious if the Browns feel the same way.
Huh. Okay.
I would have been happy to take Javon Baker in that 4th round area.
Yeah.
In his draft.
I think he went in the 6th, didn't he?
That sounds right.
Yeah. All right. Interesting stuff to keep an eye on. I believe that I was talking with our very own Jack Duff, and we'll have an article out on that very topic. Some potential trade candidates. We kind of put our heads together there to give you guys some names of some guys that could potentially be freed up here as cut downs go on, or guys that are on the verge of being freed up that the Browns could proactively move on with a late round trade or some kind of an asset flip to gain a wide receiver, which I would certainly think would be a good move. You don't see that happening though, huh?
It's just, I would say it's unlikely, but we have more definitive information for subscribers in the article we released last night on how the Browns feel about this situation. I'm inclined to agree with that. I imagine you do not, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be what I'd say. Check that out, and it gives you some more insight on that element. But yeah, it just seems like the Browns are happier with the room than maybe everybody else is.
Yeah, I agree. They probably are happy with some of the guys they have. I just think that it would only I think one name could sway them. You know what I mean? And when we're talking about 1,000 players becoming available at one time, you got to be kidding me that they can't go find an athlete, a high risk or high round draft pick or middle round draft pick that slipped through the cracks for somebody.
Perhaps.
All right. Final video of the night. Let's get to it. You know what it is. It's the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's more Sanders. It's more Gabriel. What else is it? What else could it be? Let's. It's no, it's not. Yes, it is. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. This is the React on the OBR streaming network. That's Pete Smith. My name is Brad Ward. This is the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on Should Sanders Jump Gabriel.
From FanDuel, guys, August 26th. Fusi of ESPN Cleveland, who was out there. He said, quote, "That's it for Browns training camp practice number 12. One of the better days collectively from the quarterbacks. Flacco took every first-team rep on 11 on 11s. Gabriel and Sanders alternated reps with the 2s and the 3s. Pickett did participate in 7 on 7s, did not do 11 on 11s, but worked with the starters in those 7 on 7 drills again." So this is the first time, really, G, that we have seen, I don't want to call it a significant change because the guy running mostly with the ones hasn't changed, but it does seem, according to all reports from the people out there, Sean Dunnigan also texted us, Jay, and let us know that Shadur went ahead of Gabriel in certain 11 on 11 situations, to where it wasn't always Gabriel first and then Sanders. It seemed like a pretty even mix between those two today. Is that how you would have handled it if you were Kevin Stefanski?
Yup. And people might be surprised to it. Because here's what I said from Jump Street. I said what Shadur Sanders is, he put that pressure on everybody. He really made it a competition. Y'all said it was a competition. They put him out there. He was throwing the trash cans the week before, throwing the support staff. People was mad because he wasn't getting no reps with the ones. But I was like, listen, nah, bro. If it's a competition, I want to see you go out there with 10 other hungry dogs and cook. He did that. So now, if it's a competition and I'm going to go by the letter of the law that you stated, I want to see Dylan Gabriel. I want to see the supercomputer at work. I want to see it. I want to see that strong arm. I want to see me turn my phone off because I don't got no money for y'all today. But
that's a rookie mistake. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Listen,
undrafted free agents.
Steve gonna take some reps away. Steve, I willfully give up some reps tomorrow.
Remember the movie Friday Night Lights? Back on running back couldn't find his helmet.
Yes, exactly. Hey,
there you go.
Remember when the credit, someone called asking for your credit report?
Oh yeah. He was like, oh yeah, they wanted some. That was a crazy.
He took
scene.
it live on air.
I took it live on air. He was like, yeah,
one of the greatest moments.
You want to
in
do that
UCSS
payment?
History.
Yeah, I paid y'all off.
I
Man.
was working at the clerk of course. I was watching that, and then my boss walked past like, "Can you put your phone away?"
But I will say, I want to see what Dylan got, because here's the thing. There's a reason why that competition looked the way it do in practice today. When somebody else step up and go first, he put Jackson Dart, Tyler Shook, everybody. Cam Ward came out looking like he's like, oh, I'm tired of hearing about this 12 over there in Cleveland. Listen, I'm the number one pick. I need to throw me some footballs and look like I'm competent. Everybody got to step their game up. Now what I want to see Dylan Gabriel get his shot.
Yes.
I want to see what he can do. And then we're gonna go back like it's the episode of the Cosby's challenge.
Hey, so to answer Mike's question, if this is how I would have done it, I have no problem with them splitting, but Shadur would have went ahead of Dylan Gabriel for me. I don't know if it was like that all the time, because I just go back to what Tyvis said. When you're in the tub, you can't get in the club. And the fact that he was in the tub while Shadur was out there in the club balling, then that to me warrants, okay, when we get back out here Monday,
if all things are equal,
healthy guy gets the nod. So to me, he would have went ahead of Dylan. I have no problem with them sharing the rep share, but if I was Kevin Stefanski, I would have had Shadur ahead of him. I'm with G, I'm with you. I want to see Dylan go out there and get his opportunity to show what he can do. I've said this before. Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have identified him as their guy. He was drafted with a top 100 pick. So it's up to Dylan Gabriel to go out there and prove that they were right with drafting him with a pick that high. Shadur Sanders being able to get the opportunity to go first, and then you look at all the circumstances that surrounded it, that's a lot of pressure on Dylan Gabriel, on Kenny Pickett, or anybody else for that matter, not named Joe Flacco, because here it is, he was getting limited reps. He finds out the week that, in this week that he's going to be the starting quarterback. You know that Carolina is going to play their starters even for a little bit, and this is a big unknown of how he's going to go out there and produce. And here it is, he goes out here and he balls out. Like, that's a lot of pressure. So you got to go out there, if you Dylan, and try to at least match what he did.
Here's the best part of what happened Friday night. It's not about one guy. It's not. A lot of people were like, great for Shadur. Great for him. Great for the Browns, and here's why. We had talked about different scenarios that could possibly come up. Mm-hmm. One of them was Gabriel's not him and Shadur's not him. That's a nightmare. Okay, that's a nightmare because now you know that even before the season starts, you are still looking for your quarterback.
Yep.
Okay, now I don't
already
know that
know
we're
that.
going to have the answers by week 1. In fact, let me go definitively on record. We will not. Go back and look. We were talking about DTR's preseason play and how he was a preseason Super Bowl winner.
He was so good they
Correct.
traded Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
He won the preseason, okay? And right now, he still is the worst quarterback ever to play in the NFL if you go by touchdown to interception ratio.
That's why.
He's thrown 1 touchdown, 10 picks. Now, he was the champion of the preseason. So we always have to keep that in mind. You can look great in the preseason. It's happened many times, and you can fall flat on your face. But one of the scenarios was neither one of them looks good in the preseason, and we know by week 1, we don't really have to see them because we've seen enough to know they're not him. What hasn't happened yet is no one has eliminated themselves.
Facts.
There are rookie quarterbacks. There was a 7th rounder that was like 0 for 5 with 3 picks or something. I don't even know who it was. I looked at all the rookie grades for the rookie quarterbacks.
I watched a lot of football.
And I'm like, how do you throw 3 interceptions in your first game?
Who was the guy? Man,
Are we just putting weight? All right. Like, I know he looks great and it's a big deal, right? But we're making much more of a big deal of it than it should be, right? Like, it's a big deal because of the quarterback competition. But had he looked bad, I wouldn't have eliminated him from having an NFL career, like he's saying.
Correct. But and also part of this is through the lens of he was drafted in the 5th round. Like, it's not unfair to say he looked better than a 5th round pick. Like, let's say, for example, the Browns took him 33rd overall. Then he looks fine. He played well. Don't get me wrong. He played well if he was the 2nd pick in the draft. But if he's 33rd, to use this example, it's pretty good.
Does that even
The 5th
matter
round
anymore,
is
though?
great. Huh?
Does that even matter anymore, though? The draft pick stuff? Like,
it still does in terms of he looks better than a 5th. He looks better than where he was selected.
okay.
Whereas if he was the 1st or 2nd round pick, now he looks like he's supposed to look. So there is a little bit of an element. You get a little bit of a bump because you were picked in the 5th round and you looked certainly better than you would expect a 5th round rookie to look at this stage in the game. Now, that only goes so far. That grace period is short. Now, if he continues to crush in the preseason, we're going to do exactly what we did to DTR. I remember listening to radio debates about, well, should the Browns trade DTR for a 2nd round pick? And a lot of people coming back and saying no. And by the way, I hear the Eagles really like DTR. I still like DTR, but whatever. The point remains.
They really do like DTR?
Yep. They like DTR. Or I should say,
is he going to be on their 53?
I don't know, because I know they've got Tanner McKee behind Jalen Hurts and they really like him. I don't know
Who
else
who looked incredible, by the way, in the preseason.
Yes, who looked great in preseason. But to the overall point, I agree with their assessment of Dylan Gabriel. I don't care who takes reps first because there's a lot of different ways to take reps. I've done it where I've snaked it, where you give the first quarterback goes and the 2nd quarterback goes, and then you get into a new period and you just go with that 2nd guy to allow them to get more reps in a row. There's any number of ways to do it. So I don't care who goes first if they're essentially splitting with those reps. To sort of put it in perspective in terms of it doesn't matter unless the Browns think so highly of Shadur at this point or Gabriel that they're still repping them with the ones. Again, I'm curious to see where this goes. If Joe Flacco is exclusively getting the ones because they're basically saying it's time to go. It's time to move on. It's time to get ready for the season. And they're going to use the rest of the reps to get those other guys developed and ultimately get to a point where the real question is going to be, and it may depend on the week, I suppose, and for some reasons, who is the scout team quarterback, which I think is going to be an interesting discussion. Yeah. Because if you're the scout team quarterback, you've got a real chance to make movement. You've got a chance to really impress people because you are obviously not practicing with starters, but you are going against the best. And if at that point they're sitting there going, whoa, we need to get more looks at him, that becomes very interesting. So right now, I Found nothing they said overly objectionable. I thought they were fine. I agree with the idea of I want to see what Dylan Gabriel can do. I'm not getting that worked up about it, but I understand why head to head you're going to compare. You are going. You can't help.
You have
it.
to. Yeah.
You cannot help it. Like you can sit there and talk about how Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders are running their individual races, and that is true to a point. But they are on the same track at the same time, and one of them is going to probably finish ahead of the other one. So if Shadur Sanders continues to play well and carries it over and does well against the Eagles, and Dylan Gabriel sort of scuffles, then we're going to hear more smartest guy in the room crap, or Dylan Gabriel should be whatever. And if Dylan Gabriel outplays Shadur Sanders, then we're going to sit there and go, one, I don't think anybody's going to sit there and go Shadur Sanders is bad. But I think they will say, okay, now I understand why the Browns took Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shadur Sanders. Best case scenario, both Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders play great. The Browns put up 56, and we're sitting there excited about everybody. But I don't think that's likely to happen. But stranger things have happened.
As we move forward, and you alluded to it, that it may be the case. Do you think it's the most likely case that the ones are just Flacco's from here on in?
I don't know, honestly. That's why I'm curious to watch. Yeah. I don't know, because if Kenny Pickett was healthy, I suspect he'd still get reps of the ones at this point. At least to get a clearer answer on that. It's really a question. What I would say is this: if I had to guess right now, assuming everybody was healthy, Flacco would get the lion's share of the ones. Kenny Pickett would still get some of the ones and maybe get some with twos, but that Shadur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel are splitting with the twos and threes at this point, unless somebody makes incredible progress. And if suddenly you're talking about Shadur Sanders, for example, because he's played and we've seen it, if he's done well enough to get reps with the ones, I'm taking notice at that point that he's getting reps in the ones, even if it's ultimately doing what the Check the Mic guys were saying and testing him and seeing what they could do, because that means you are taking time with less than a month until the start of the season to get him work with the ones. That is potentially taking away time for Flacco or Pickett to get work with those guys. The two guys that you expect to be playing early, that would at least make me take notice that they want to see what the kid can do still at this point, and that would be encouraging in terms of their development, even if that does not necessarily mean, and I suppose it could, that they are necessarily charging for the number one spot.
Yeah, I mean, it gets tougher by the week, though. The timeline for this stuff is tough. Last thing, we gotta go here in a minute, but last thing, you said in the post-game show, I mentioned that I was concerned about nickel corner.
Fairly.
Because, Mitchell did not look good. And
I thought the secondary sucked. But
yeah.
If you want to be blunt, like, I don't know about sucked, but relative to the defense, I thought the secondary stood out as questionable.
I thought the guys that looked the best were actually the two undrafted guys, Dom Jones and Lamarius James, actually played better than the other guys. And Newsium, who actually started, I didn't think was very good. And
I thought Newsium was okay. I thought he was right in position to cover. Tet McMillan just didn't finish it with his hands.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, notable enough that he started out the game. He's a second-year undrafted free agent that the Browns grabbed as a reserves future contract guy at the end of last season to then give him a season. And it may have been wanting to put him out there to sort of see if he's interesting enough or move on. Unclear, but that was intriguing. And then, I thought it was curious, the play that Carson Schwessinger makes the tackle on that hook curl.
Yeah.
And Bernie Kosar's analysis was dead on live. He cannot give that guy that much space. I don't know if Cam Mitchell was concerned that he was going to get beat over the top if he played up, but that was a little bit concerning. Now, granted, he's playing outside, that's really not what he's trying to do, unless the Browns deal with an injury, then he's out there, and that raises additional questions. But yeah, I mean, look, Jim Schwartz has basically come out and said, look, we're trying to figure it out between Cameron Mitchell and Miles Harden. You're not game planning for this. So, if Greg Newsome comes back and he's good and Denzel Ward continues to be Denzel Ward, and you're sitting there going, well, we don't love what we're getting out of the nickel corner, at least you can then dedicate extra help there in real games. But for this, you want to put them on an island as often as possible. You want to see how they handle the situation. Are they confident enough to believe in their ability? Are they going to trust their technique? Are they going to do the things you need them to do so that you can trust them in a real situation, in a key third down? Or do they need more help, or should they not be on the field out there at all?
The chat mentioning Nick Needham. He had the interception. Nick Needham is playing safety.
And I don't know. Maybe he did something else. That was the only thing I saw him do.
Yeah, no, that's all he's done, and he's actually been changed on their depth chart to safety as well. When I was at camp, that's all he did was play single high free safety.
Cam
Anyways,
Thomas created that interception, by the way.
Yeah, he's playing like a beast for sure. I would just say that Mitchell, I was highly underwhelmed. Mitchell, he had no idea where the ball was on the one play. He's just been disappointing overall, and I was really hoping he would step up. Now he's forced to play on the outside in that game, but they need to get him more reps in the nickel where he's going to play. And I was hoping Harden would come on faster too. So either guy I would love to see step up. Just haven't really seen it yet. And you don't think that they would go outside the roster for this position?
All I see when I see other teams talking about what they need, all of them are saying we need more corner help. Everybody says we need more corner help. And the team that jumps out right off the rip is the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins trade Jalen Ramsey, and then one of their starters is out for the year or out for some significant amount of time. They are really hard pressed. They may have to overpay for some of these veterans free agents that are still sitting out there. But every team is still looking for corner help. Nobody is satisfied with their corners. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles traded for a guy I like in Jacorian Bennett, former Maryland corner, because they want to try to continue to upgrade their position. I don't see a lot of answers. I'm frankly surprised that the Raiders were willing to trade Jacorian Bennett, because that gives them one less guy. But I just don't see a whole lot of answers. What you've got right now are veterans out there who want more money or to find the right opportunity with the contender, neither of which are great for the Browns. And then two, you're taking shots on guys that you'd rather have sixth on the depth chart than third, which is what you're trying to address, third and fourth. And that's the challenge. I don't see a whole lot of answers there. And hell, I watched the Minnesota preseason game. What did I see? Khalil Falassi get 2 picks. I mean, now it seemed like both of them were thrown right to him, but nevertheless, that doesn't give me a great hope that the Browns are going to find an answer elsewhere. I think they've got what they've got, and they've got sort of those fringe guys and enough extra ones that they're going to try to get some of those guys on the practice squad. But I don't see a whole lot of answers coming. Maybe there's an undrafted rookie that they like out there that gets cut, and they claim them like they did with Falassi the first time. But you're not going to take that guy and plug them right into the starting lineup, which, slot corner is a starting position.
I thought the guy they brought in kind of profiled similar to Falassi, the most recent guy they brought in. Well, they brought in Darius Rush.
No, the Keenan Isaac is the guy that you were referring to. I don't remember seeing him. I don't remember seeing him in the game. I don't know if he was out there or not. He may have been. I didn't check. But Keenan Isaac is the 6'3", 190-pound guy.
That's who I was
25 years old in Alabama State. I don't know. And then the Browns signed Christian Holmes. to try to beef up that. They've got Darius Rush, who they've had before, who's a tall corner. It certainly seems like the guys they are adding are tall. Darius Rush, 6'2", 198. I haven't verified that. Christian Holmes, 6'1", 205. Keenan Isaac, 6'3", 190. They are not bringing in short guys. So it suggests to me they want
tall.
Yes, Dom Jones is a prototypical press corner. They are not bringing in, at least right now, slot guys. Which is another thing. I think they know what they've got, and whether you like it or not. So ultimately, it's coach them up, get them as many reps as possible, try to get these guys confident as possible, and then game plan around the weakness.
Christopher Edmonds played really well, I thought. Think he has a chance to make the roster?
Yes. I've said all along, or when I wrote the article I did about the undrafted free agents that can make this team, I think both Christopher Edmonds and Donovan McMillan could both make this roster. Listen, I think Rayshon Jenkins got jobbed. But when the other dude threw 3 punches and he finally got a chance to throw back sort of one and he got ejected, I also wasn't heartbroken to see Rayshon Jenkins get tossed. However, having said that, he was in there before Devontae KZ. Is that meaningful? I don't know. My inclination would be the Browns would like to keep 5 safeties. In that scenario, I could see where it's either Rayshon or KZ, and those two, and if those two undrafted free agents do enough to keep those two, I think I've said this all along with this whole thing. I think the Browns really are rooting for those young guys that they've assembled, these undrafted rookies the last couple of years. They're rooting for these guys to come in and make the veterans they've signed expendable, because those guys potentially have a future and can be developed. And particularly at that position, the Browns have been good at being able to train up guys that they feel fit what they want to do and get them to play at a reasonable level. Obviously, DeAnthony Bell was a nice role player and a special teams guy. He signs with Seattle this offseason. Ronnie Hickman is now in a position to potentially they want him to win the starting job. I mean, I can't say it any other way than they want him to win the starting job. Undrafted free agent. Christopher Edmonds, undrafted free agent in his second year in the program. It seems like he's benefiting. Donovan McMillan has really interesting tools, really good athlete. Can he do enough? And the thing is, I believe I saw both Edmonds and McMillan on special teams, which again is something else that helps and is really useful for these undrafted rookie guys, either because they are coming out of college with experience or they will do anything. They will do anything to make a roster, and they will learn, they will get coached up, and you're seeing a lot of those guys on these special teams units.
Yep, I think you're right. I think it either breaks that way, like you said, or they keep Jenkins and KZ. Partially, if you don't get great nickel play, you may have to keep. They both are your next best option, probably.
Potentially, that's the other question that Edmonds and McMillan have to try to answer. Can they be that guy? My inclination would be no. But I would like to be proven wrong. They're both big. They're both sort of, Donovan McMillan had really good agility testing, so I don't want to bury him before he's dead. Edmonds is the one where I sit there and go, I don't think this is going to work in terms of that position.
Yeah, as a straight cover guy, unlikely. Yeah.
No, free. He played free. I could see him play combo safety, but not.
Yeah.
We got to man up and take out a slot receiver. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. And Jenkins and KZ, to your point, both kind of have that in their skill set. So
have done it a lot.
All right, let's get out of here, Pete. You got anything else to say?
Yeah, as I said, I've said multiple times. If you are subscribed, go check out the latest stuff between what we've published in an article and then on the Insider Central stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff that you're going to have well before anyone else does. That's going to give you a very clear picture of what's going on in a couple key positions: quarterback, wide receiver, and some other areas where, you know, the Browns are making some important decisions. And then some other tidbits at other positions that you're going to want to know. So that would be my big thing. If you're not subscribed, you should. In addition to everything else, if you like UFC, apparently Paramount basically got exclusive UFC receipt, right? So your subscription gets better with your whole Paramount Plus thing. So that's one other element.
There you have it. This has been another edition of The React. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on your way in or out. That is Pete Smith. Always fantastic, terrific job as always. My name is Brad Ward. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. We are out.